As a firefighter, he always had a mustache. Finally shaved it off. I decided to post that. Lo and behold, it went viral because of our accents.
What accent?
We had this really long conversation with Cam and Mal. So I left there with the mindset, I'm like, okay, I think I'm actually going to quit. Next weekend, we went to church. I've never been to church and heard a sermon about like leaving things when it's time. And that was the sermon. I'm like, if I don't quit tomorrow, like he's going to strike me down.
Life happened. The miscarriage, then getting pregnant again. Even after like going through the miscarriage, I'm like, okay, is this something I have to share?
How quickly did you get pregnant after your miscarriage?
2 months.
Wow. Welcome back to the Fortitude podcast. We're your hosts, Micah and
Sarah.
And we have the pleasure of having our first guests on.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube,
YouTube.
Facebook, sensations.
And now a podcast.
And now a
Yard
podcast.
Too kind.
You guys.
Yeah, too nice.
You guys are our first guests on.
I feel so honored and special. And we had
Same.
just discovered that we're y'all's fourth guest. And then Sarah was my
not fourth guest. Fourth
episode.
Yeah.
And she was on my fourth episode. Meant to be.
Aligned.
To be.
Thanks for
Papa.
Thanks for Thanks for having us in your home, guys. We really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Of course.
Of course.
Anytime.
Guys, your home is beautiful.
It is.
And
And
Hunter,
so is the love inside.
Yeah.
Wow.
Home is where the heart is.
Yeah.
But it really is. You know when you walk in someone's home and you can feel that it's like a peaceful, love-filled place or
Yeah.
not. Like that it's like so comfortable here. Like I slept like so
That
good
is
last night.
such a compliment.
Yeah, that is.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's sweet. Well, y'all are going to host us soon in your New
Absolutely.
York apartment.
Yes. Come
Cannot
on
wait.
over. It's very similar to Alabama. We don't have boiled nuts.
We gotta take y'all to get boiled peanuts.
That's a must.
Boiled peanuts.
Peanuts.
Yeah.
Gotta be careful how you say that.
Yeah, it's boiled, but apparently that's how they say it. Boiled peanuts. Okay, I can't wait to try it.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna blow your
Maybe we can find
mind.
some. It's usually like a fall kind of thing.
Really?
It's peanut season.
Oh.
So maybe we
Wait,
can find
they're
some.
really in
they're
season or not season?
wet.
I mean, you can get them year round.
Yeah.
wet.
They're like in
but
juice.
They
Peanuts
harvest
and
peanuts in the
juice.
fall.
But they're really good.
Yeah. So like there's lots of juice, you pick it out, and then they're in the shell still. You use your teeth or use your fingers, crack it open. And then you know how like a peanut is dry?
Yeah.
It's like
It's
squishy.
soft.
It's like a bean. It becomes a bean.
Interesting.
Y'all, it's so good. It's a salty snack.
Okay.
Wow.
Well,
It doesn't taste like peanut butter.
I guess like when
I'm really intrigued.
our boiled peanuts in New York would be pizza,
Yeah.
like New York pizza.
Oh, like staples.
Oh, like a thing.
Yeah, like
I
a
was like,
staple. I'm
that
trying to think
sounds
of like
nothing
what would
pizza.
a New York staple be, and it'd probably be. New
I
York
also
pizza.
think of bagels.
Bagels.
When I
Oh
think
yes,
of New York
the bagels
food.
are real,
Yeah.
real good.
Okay, so we got to get pizza. We
And-
got to
Yeah.
get bagels.
A lot of carbs. Get rid of
Yeah.
the carbo load.
Yeah,
I'll bring my
Carb load.
insulin.
I'm a carb guy, so we're good.
I'm so excited for this conversation and
me
where it's
too.
going to lead to, and I believe it's going to be really impactful, and yeah, you guys might learn a little something new. So I know that you guys have said this and got this a lot, where people are saying, "Are they really like that?" when you meet them, and I'll be on record to say they are not.
They are so
Hunter is way more jacked in person, and Devin is just way kinder.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Seriously.
so
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
you
Thank
guys
you,
are
guys.
authentic through and through, like what,
You are.
on screen, off screen. So let's start at the beginning, because you guys are like middle school sweethearts.
Basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
End of 8th grade. Then we had the summer to kind of hang out, get to know each other. Then we started high school, but we went to separate schools.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I went to like a public school. He went to a Christian private school. Complete different vibes. But yeah, we dated for, obviously all of high school, and then got engaged the same year I graduated, like a few months.
Yeah.
And then we married the following year.
Wow.
So we got married very young. We were
Yeah.
19, but we were together all that time. So we knew we wanted to be together.
Yeah.
But it was different because we were the boyfriend, girlfriend, 8th graders, and then had to develop into, okay, we're getting married. So we matured together in ways, but that was hard,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know? So now we've been together. It's been 11 years, 11 and a half years, and we've been married 6.
Wow.
Wow.
So you were together for how long before you married?
By the time we got married, it was like 5 years.
5 years.
5
Right.
years.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there ever a time where you thought, should I see what else is out there? You know, I don't know.
Right.
Like, you know, not in a negative way, just being like you were always, you know, it was like the same person since middle school. And that's not most people's stories, you know.
Right.
And so was there ever a point in either of your mind of like, wow, okay, this is somebody that I've been with literally since I was able to walk. And,
Basically.
and so like, this is kind of like just trusting that this is going to be this is the right one.
I'm curious to see what Hunter has to say. It's a good question.
I think that we know the short answer is no.
Right.
When we were in high school and we would like go through things, but like I said, we were so young and like immature. I think we mentioned that to each other. Like, should we kind of
like a should we?
should we, you know, should we try other things? Should we, you know, see if we liked different people? And it never lasted. I think the longest like break that we took was only like a week.
A week. Yeah.
And we still talked like the entire time. So it was obvious. And that was another reason why I think we got married. We decided to get married so young, is that it was obvious to both of us that like we really wanted to be together because we sacrificed like things that we had originally planned to do just to be together more and earlier, sooner, younger.
Yeah. Like going off to college and things like that, you know, because we were senior year, we're like, all right, well, just because we felt like it was a thing to do, like you have to go off. So where are you going? What do you want to be? And I think that it was going to be different schools. That was heartbreaking because I don't know, it's just such an unexplainable thing. And like thinking about now, especially having a daughter, like if she got a boyfriend at 13, I feel like we'd be like, no, ma'am, you're too young.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
But I was 13.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
We were,
wild.
but it was the immature boyfriend girl. So our parents were just like, I remember his parents always saying, I wish y'all would have met later on. And I'm like, why are you dooming us? You know, like assuming we would break up.
Yeah.
Because you do. It is a rare thing for there to be high school sweethearts. You know what I mean? And
Well, high school sweethearts that end up like,
together.
you know, end up together.
Right.
Yeah.
And so-
let alone middle school.
No, seriously. And
I guess it's 13 high school.
End of 8th grade, she said.
Yeah, so it is
Yeah.
middle school, going into high school. Yeah.
I think what's really neat about our story too is, I mean, y'all know, high school, you're a different person. College, you're a different person. Even after college, you're a different person. And we talked about our brains don't even fully develop till you're 25. So we had to relearn each other at every stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because
definitely.
we kept we were growing into the person God created us at different stages, and we had to do that together. And so now, like, who I'm sitting by is so different than the guy I dated in high school.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Was there any of those seasons that was harder than another?
That's what I was about to say. Hot take. The most recent season change has been the hardest on us out of all of them. Like by far. It's not even close.
And
Yeah.
by recent, like what transition or what
I think
season?
transition like into parenthood
Parenthood.
was a huge change for us.
Yeah. Because we went from all this time it just being us. And then even we had 3 years of marriage. So we're still developing and maturing. And even though in those moments you think you've peaked your maturity, you're mature, you're good.
Always.
And even looking back to, I mean, I was 22 when I got pregnant with Ivy. And now we're 25. And I'm like, I've matured so much since then, becoming a mom. And so we went from it just being us to now this new responsibility, a child. And that shook us. That is probably the first time that we had, like, because before that, you know, people would ask about our relationship and we're like, oh, it's all great. You know, like, yeah, there's hardships, but really nothing bad. Becoming parents rocked us.
Yeah.
We were young.
Yeah.
You were 22.
Two.
Yeah, that's super young, and I'm sure it sped up. I mean, we're not parents yet, but I feel like parenthood, it forces you to learn things that you would never be able to learn if you didn't become parents or didn't have a child. So many things that you probably had to grow in and sacrifice, that it just brings in a different dynamic, I'm sure. But you know, continue on. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, yeah, it's so true.
I mean, just something simple like we never argued or never even bickered really ever until we had Ivy. And it took a few months because it's, thinking about it now, the newborn stage was like, and when you're in the moment, the newborn stage is like next to impossible. Thinking about it now, it's like, oh, that really wasn't so bad.
Try toddler
Yeah,
stage.
exactly. The older that she got and the more, I guess, responsibility that it really just took like a really big toll on us. And that's when we started. And it wasn't like we were obviously, we just did start bickering more. We started arguing more. And that was something that we had to try to overcome and get used to. It's like, okay, we're going to have, I guess, sometimes different opinions on things. We're going to have different experiences and interpret things different ways. And so we had to adjust to that.
Right. Because that was sad. We went through a mourning phase, even though it was one of the happiest moments of our life having a child. But for our relationship, it was hard because it was sad. You go from never bickering, never arguing really. And then we're like, what is this? Oh, is this what people are talking about when they say you're out of the honeymoon season or whatever? Mm-hmm. We also knew, we knew how to work through it in a way. Like we had good counsel and good mentorship that people were parents. And it was just a new territory. But now looking back, we're expecting baby number 2. Yes. And so I feel like this time it's going to be so different because we're prepared for that.
Yeah.
But also 22 years old, I feel like our brains were just going from the high school us to adults still at that age.
Absolutely.
You guys having baby number 2 is when we met. If you want to put that in perspective.
Yeah, age-wise.
Age-wise for us.
Wow.
Age-wise. When you guys got married, I probably kissed a girl for the first time. It wasn't quite that bad. It was 16. But it was just I can't even imagine being at that age, but I'm sure it kind of forced you guys to really mature and grow up super quickly. Did it come to a point, in this new season where you're like, okay, I noticed that we're bickering a lot more than we normally do? And was it a conversation that you guys ended up having? And did you implement certain things in your life so that you can get through this season a little bit better and just have more of an understanding? Or does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we had a conversation like that. Why are we acting this way to each other? And it was just a moment of, from what I remember, it was just really a moment of self-reflection, for both of us, and saying, okay, what is this? Why are we acting this way? And we really had to, like I said, self-reflect and deep dive into what's going on in our lives that's causing us to act this way to each other, something that we had never experienced before. And we did that, and we were able to, realize the root cause of it. And it got better over time. We learned how to, in the moments that we were bickering or arguing, we learned to not necessarily stop, but be like, okay, it's okay that we are differing on whatever the issue is, but we need to talk about it, talk through it instead of bickering.
Coming at each other.
Yeah, coming at each other.
And realizing, okay, we're one. We're on a team. Our child, it's not mom versus dad. We are mom and dad together. And so that was a learning curve in and of itself. I think one of the root was we were so distracted by becoming parents, and we had misplaced our priorities. It all got out of whack. And as Christians, when God is not first, everything just feels like chaos. At that time, I was also going through postpartum depression and things like that. And my priorities were so out of order. Ivy was my idol, and without meaning for her to be. And then same for him. Our focus was just on her. It's we kind of just displaced each other unintentionally. And it caused that season of that. And so once we figured out the root in that, okay, we've got to put God back first individually, because it has to be individual. Then we can be able to grow together. It's awesome, talking about it and seeing how far we've come since. Ivy's almost 3, And now it's been so much better for us.
You know, as Christians, we know that we're supposed to put God first before our spouse, before our child. And in theory, it sounds great. But in practice, it can be so difficult. Did you guys have, like, how were there, like, tangible, practical, daily things? Were there tangible, practical, daily things that you guys did that helped you, like, get your vertical alignment back in the proper order?
Yeah, I would say the practical things is just being in the Word, of course. And like for me, it was just trying to set my mind on things above. And so when I was getting ready, I would turn on worship music and things that it would just help me feel connected to God. And then, you know, He comes before Ivy. That's the priority order. And so just to check in on each other more, and my self-reflection, you have to swallow your pride, you know, and I realized that it's almost like you don't even hear yourself until we had that conversation. And then when it would happen, I would try to like take myself out of it and look on the outside looking in and be like, do you see how you're communicating to him? You know, and that's why he's responding this way. And now you're stuck in this crazy cycle of on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. The root cause was that we weren't putting God first. And I think that we honestly really never made that a priority throughout the majority of our relationship. I would say that there was a time that we did, like really in the end of high school, but once we got married and we kind of let that slack again.
Multiple seasons of it.
Yeah, which that was fine, and it's not fine. But I'm saying it was fine because we didn't really experience any problems until the new addition, right? And so then you add her, because it was basically us, then God. Okay, now you have her, then us, then God. So he's moving down, and the further that he gets from the top, the worse we were in our relationship.
Yeah.
So once we realized that and we started making a conscious effort to put him back as our number one priority, that is when it made the biggest difference.
Yeah. And when we say that too, I think it meant even doing the laundry, not doing it for the expectations of him to notice or vice versa, to get a compliment, be like, thank you so much. It was, I'm doing this out of a servant's heart for God, basically, you know, and then it made it feel that way, you know, because you were working a butt ton, you know, and so I'm like, is he not noticing I'm cleaning the house or all this? So then whenever you change your mindset to be like, I'm not doing this for the expectation of being appreciated. I know it's nice, but it healed so much, like for me, self-reflecting in that way.
No, that's really good.
That is very good.
Yeah, because I was about to ask for the person listening who, you know, you hear that a lot, especially as Christians, is like, you know, you should put God first. But what does that look like practically in your life? Like, what does that actually look like? Because it you know, for somebody who's maybe new to Christianity or maybe is just exploring their faith, like what does that look like? What does that mean to put God first exactly?
Right. Because you can't see God.
Right.
You know, and so that's what it's just.
Does that just mean you're praying all day and you're reading your Bible all day? You know?
It's such a mental shift. And so I had to get in the practice of just the house chores, just, you know, honestly for me, it was just consciously in my head, like talking to him and like, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you. Or, you know, and then gradually it becomes natural. And because yes, the easy things is getting in the word every day and worship music, prayer, all that, but you still have life to do. And so while you're doing the dishes, you can be talking to the Lord or whatever. And then just every action I make or before you speak or have a conversation, I'm just like, okay, God, just help this not be hurtful or, you know, take everything through the God filter, basically.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I really started like reading my Bible, just started because I wasn't ever really before consistently. So I started that, and that to me, like, because I would get up early in the morning, I read, and that's not ideal for everybody, but for me that works because that kind of keeps me remembering throughout the day. If things happen, I say, okay, you know what? And if I go like a couple days or something without doing it, I can tell a big difference.
Absolutely.
You know, it's my flesh reacting to things, and I don't feel like I have that like God filter to be able to like properly evaluate situations and not overreact.
I relate to that so much because it is when you let like life get the best of you, and then you go 5 days and you're like, why do I feel so off?
Yeah.
Why am I like being so snippy or whatever it is? And I'm like, oh, I have not been reading my Bible. Get back in it.
I know. It's so wild how the biggest difference it really does make.
Yeah.
You know, because outsiders looking in, like people who aren't believers, they're just like, it's a book.
Right.
But it's so much more than that. It really brings life. It's alive. And it really makes a difference. And seeing him read his Bible every day, it motivates me. And I appreciate that so much because I trust him more because I know he's getting fed spiritually.
Yeah. And I'd like to add to that. Like when you say that when you see me doing it, it helps you. So there's a person that I worked with for a long time, and he had basically a life changing moment. He's a person that he always said he was a Christian, but he never like really walked it out. And I saw that change in him like almost overnight, and just working with him consistently. And I'm not saying he was perfect, obviously, by any means, but I could just tell the difference in him overnight. And it, without even realizing it, like he was encouraging me to become more of that person, more of a spiritual leader. Basically what I'm saying is seeing somebody doing it can sometimes make the biggest difference.
Absolutely. I think
100%.
it's like convicting. That happens a lot in everything. Like you can read books and you can learn how to be a better person or be a better Christian or be a better father or a husband. But like, I feel like seeing somebody walk it out, it so much is caught like versus taught. So like you catch things from watching people's examples. It's more convicting than just reading some words on a page sometimes. And that can be really powerful. That's why association is so key. And like, I love that you guys talked about how, you know, you had some mentors and you had people in your life that helped you through some of that time. Cause I feel like that is really major in when you're going through some battles or going through some struggle, whether it's in your relationship or in your life, to have people that can pour into you that maybe is a little bit further along in those areas that can help kind of fill those gaps. They see it from a different perspective. Let's back it up and talk about kind of your rise to social media. So before social media, you were a firefighter.
Yep.
And did you go to school or go to college for? You went to college for?
Yes, physical therapist assistant. Yeah.
Okay.
So I graduated with that, and whenever I was in school, he was working a job that he was bringing home like $400 a week. So thank goodness for financial aid that got me through college.
Yep.
So graduated, got a job. I was working it for a year. And for us, but going from him only making $400 every 2 weeks to me bringing home a paycheck and it was decent, then he became a firefighter. Mm-hmm. So I say I was basically the breadwinner at that time because I was bringing home a decent income. But then COVID hit and then I wasn't needed really. And so, but in that, it all happened at the perfect time because I was figuring out my purpose and what am I doing? Like, what does God want of me? I felt like I was just going through the motions of life, like work or whatever. And I felt like there was a calling on my life and I just wasn't there yet. And so I ended up quitting and then got pregnant with Ivy. So the timeline was perfect. And so we're like, okay, that's what that was for. Mm-hmm. So I was a stay-at-home mom. I started YouTube just to document my pregnancy and all of that. And then I kind of got discouraged. Like after I had Ivy, I kind of fell off a little bit because it was having a newborn plus editing YouTube videos. It was
I can't imagine
a lot of work.
I know. I can't imagine that.
But at that point, I wasn't making money off of our YouTube or anything. So it was just for fun. Mm-hmm. So that was because I was a stay-at-home mom. Well, I was a stay-at-home wife while I was pregnant. Had Ivy, fell off YouTube. And then I had to edit our birth vlog. So I ended up posting that. And then that got a little bit more traction. And that kind of sparked it back in me. Be like, okay, people, I should keep going, you know? And, you know, I struggled with postpartum depression for a few months. And I got on medication. So that helped just kind of get me back to normal. Mm-hmm. And then it was September of 2021. I downloaded TikTok. I actually had saw some other creators like talk about they were YouTubers, didn't really happen for them. Then they started TikTok and it got them a following on YouTube. So that was my end goal, was YouTube. And so I was like, I guess I'll download TikTok and make some videos. Yep. So I made the cringiest videos. I was just all the voiceover stuff. Like it was really big back then. And it was just silly mom content stuff.
And they're still on our page. So if you're really dedicated,
if you're
really dedicated, you can scroll down.
I haven't scrolled down in so long, but one time I did, and these comments were like, "So this is where it started, huh?"
Wow, people went all the way back.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's hilarious. I think that's good though to be able to like see where you came from because that's everyone. I was hearing a podcast of this guy who's like absolutely exploding, millions of subscribers on YouTube and is just doing really well. And talked about how he went back and listened to his first podcast and he was just like, it was so unbearable to listen to. You only know what you know at that time and you grow, like you're just never going to be amazing right off the get-go at anything you do. And you just have to have that grace with yourself where the doing is where the learning is. Yeah. You just have to do, you fail, you learn from it and you just keep growing. And so I think it's kind of nice to look back and just see how far you've gone. Cause I know that probably even a couple years from now, you'll look back at some ones that you did this past year and you're like, oh my gosh, wow, look how far I've come.
I know.
It just always adapts and you just grow.
For sure. Yeah. And so I was making those videos and it was for me. It gave me like a fulfillment almost, like it was therapy. And so, cause he was working a lot of overtime as a firefighter just so to make ends meet. So I was at home with our daughter who was a new baby. And so it was fun.
It gave her something to look forward to. It was like, oh, I can make a video to this audio today and edit it and blah, blah, blah.
It gave me something to do while she was napping or whatever. So I wasn't bored. And so from like September to December, it was just me. He would be in some of them. Like if I found a voiceover that it was like both parts and he would do it gladly because he was very supportive. He has always been my biggest cheerleader. Even quitting my job when I was making the most money for our family, as hard as it was, he was like, okay, do what you feel like the Lord's telling you to do. Support it. And then I want to start YouTube. Okay. Just tell me what I need to do to help. Okay. I'm downloading TikTok. Okay. I'll be in some videos if you want, but never did we think we'd be here now.
Heck no.
No. He's like, I'm a firefighter.
Yeah.
I grew my own following, like 25,000 followers in a few months just by my cringy content.
And that's from TikTok, right?
And I say cringy in the best way because I was so young and they're funny looking back.
So before, just for timeline's sake, before TikTok, you were doing YouTube for how long?
It was probably a year at that point.
Okay, for a full year trying that out. Kind of
not extremely consistent.
Not getting it.
Not consistent.
Okay. We only made videos when we had something to make videos about.
Sure.
I started on my phone.
Okay.
I filmed this way,
sure.
horizontal. I edited it on iMovie on my phone. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
It just at the beginning of it all.
Right.
He always filmed me like reactions and stuff. I'm just a very expressive person. And so he just thinks I'm hilarious, even if I'm not trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Which it keeps our marriage fun.
Yeah.
And so he sweetly makes fun of me.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't odd for him to come in there and film me, his reaction to him shaving his mustache off. Because as a firefighter, he always had a mustache or whatever. Finally shaved it off. And for whatever reason, I decided to post that on my page. And it was still Hunter and Devin's page, wasn't it? Like I put that as us because he was on it some. I was like, this really don't fit like my content, but I'll post it, I guess. Lo and behold, it went viral because of our accents.
What accent?
Yeah, she said our accents.
Because our accents.
And I'm like, what? I couldn't fathom that. I'm like, why are people so infatuated with a Southern accent? And then I'm like, Hunter, do I even have an accent?
Right.
I don't hear it.
You guys are just used to it because, why would you think any other way? It was like when I was in Wisconsin, I kind of like got rid of a little bit the dialect. But when I was there, my acting coach would say, you got to get rid of your dialect. I'm like, what kind of dialect are you talking about? Like, that's literally Southern.
Right.
So I can't remember how I did it. It was like cat or like salad, like that. That's, I guess, a pretty Wisconsin accent.
We were broke. We never traveled. So we never had people really tell us, oh, y'all must be from the South. You have accents, So we were just used to living in Alabama. The furthest we've been is Florida.
Yeah.
You know? And
I mean, I knew it, but Devin's like, what do you mean we have an accent? Like, she just couldn't wrap her head around it. And then even to this day, she asks y'all, I noticed, she still asks everybody that we meet, do I have an accent to y'all? Like, what do I sound like? And like,
I think it's because
you sound like if butter could talk, that would be you.
Butter and fried chicken.
Yes, butter. It was an insecurity though when we posted it and people were pointing it out, because then you had the people that were like, there's no way this is real. There's no way this is a real accent.
They thought it was put on.
They thought I was faking it.
Yeah.
And so it got me in my head. I'm like, I remember calling my mom. I would ask my friends, like, do I talk like this? Do I talk the way I sound in a video? You know? And of course I'm goofier sometimes and whatever. So I insinuate it, or what's the word? Exaggerate it. So when we're being goofy and stuff, intentionally.
Right.
And then so we just decided, I was like, people like this. People like our content. So we started just filming organic stuff, and it worked. And we went from 25,000 followers to 1 million followers in a month.
Crazy.
And somebody told us, another creator, Alex and John, shout out, love them. They were the first people to come to us and say, like, hey, we want to talk to you, give you some advice. And we're just like, whoa, like, they have a lot of followers. Like, they're like, welcome to your new life. And I was like, huh?
Excuse me?
And we were living with his mom at this point. And so his mom just watched it all happen too. And like, what is happening? And yeah, it's so wild.
Having that kind of growth, 25K to 1 million, like that can be a little overwhelming. And
100%.
So, like where it's like, oh gosh, this is like really taking off. And was there ever thoughts of like, I need to keep this going, this momentum going, and I can't like fall off, and I need to keep up with this, and I need to keep my content, or was it just did it just happen because it was kind of organic?
Yeah, I think it just happened because we didn't know what we didn't know. And so we were I didn't think about keeping it up, or, I mean, at that point, we're like, we want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any expectations on what it would look like, or like we were so content with that. Like it just blew our minds. I was fine with 25,000 followers.
Yeah, she started making like $250 a day on the creator fund. Ooh. And we were like, that can add up.
Yeah,
right there.
absolutely.
And then we started getting approached by management companies, and we were like, we do not need managers. Like let's sit down. We're not that prideful. Right. We got to remain humble. Okay.
Yeah.
And so
it was almost like a joke. We're like, managers? Like,
who do we think we are? Like, we're not doing that. Yeah. People here would judge us so much.
Yeah.
And
that's hilarious.
And then Alex and John were like, get managers. And I was like, okay. But I remember getting brand deals like in our emails. They were like, hey, we'll pay you $30 for a video. Shout out on this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to be rich. Yeah. $30, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Right.
So as that was happening, as the following was growing rapidly, were you like, I think maybe this is what God has for me? Like, I think this is part of the call that he has on my life. And maybe it's different than I thought it would be, but I think this is the thing.
Backstory, the few months before, like when I started TikTok and stuff, I was in my waiting season. I knew something was coming. I could feel that my purpose was about to be revealed. And I mean, that was years in the making. Of a year before, whenever I got pregnant, I felt when I quit that job, I was like, well, I think I didn't know what my purpose was, but I felt like it was coming, you know? And I know we have different purposes in different seasons and all of that, but my purpose in that whole season was waiting and trusting and seeking. And so I remember just having a lot of alone time with the Lord and in prayer, and I talked to Hunter a lot, and I knew it was almost like prophesied over me that I was going to be an influencer. I had no idea it meant literally an influencer on social media.
Right.
It was more of, I felt like it had something to do with social media, but I would have never expected it to be that huge, because he revealed it to me, like what it was going to be, kind of. I felt like he was like, just surrender it to me. And this is when I had started TikTok and stuff, and I was growing followers. So I was like, okay, I think I'm in the will. I'm in his will, whatever. I knew there had to be more to it though. And so he kept saying, surrender it to me, surrender it to me. And I felt like it was going to end up being a job. Like, I felt like we were going to end up being able to provide a little bit for our family through it. Mm-hmm. No idea what that would look like, because I was like, how do you even do that? And so anyways, surrender. And then finally one day, and it was the same day that he filmed the mustache videos, or around that time. It was the day I posted the videos. I hadn't posted them yet. Okay, I was at a stop sign, and it just struck me, and he was like, because I was like, how else do I surrender this? I'm praying, I'm in the Word, I'm saying I'm surrendering it to you. And then I got to the stop, and he was like, have you even asked me? And I was like, I haven't even really asked him to take this. And because I felt like I knew what the calling was of pursuing social media and stuff. Me trusting him, it was just like I was expecting it to happen for myself, or like by my means of work, and by me doing whatever. And so in that moment, I had like an epiphany moment, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know what it means to surrender now. And so I was like, okay, God, I was like, I feel like this is what you have for me. So would you take it and you grow it through, because of you, not because of me or whatever. And I just had such a peace. It fell over me, and I was like, okay, I'm done figuring it out. Like, I'm done. Now I truly believe I'm trusting him. And that was a few months of taking. And then, so that same day, after I felt like I surrendered it fully, we posted the mustache video, went viral.
Yeah.
And so in all that, I was in shock. I'm like, Hunter, and because I had told him about it. I told him about me praying and the peace I felt. It was so cool, and cool for him to see too. Like, it was such a testimony of faith. And so then in the growth, I'm like, because I said, if you take it and grow it, I will surrender it all to you. And so I had that, almost that pressure of being like, okay, God listened. So I've got to surrender this to him and whatever. And so that's why I was like, I'm never going to be ashamed to talk about him on social media and all of that. And yeah, here we are.
Speaking of that, being a Christian on social media, did you ever feel the pressure of needing to be like super Christian on every single post, or feeling the need to like say a Bible verse or say something about God, where you kind of felt the pressure of like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yes. And it was a struggle. Like, so at first it was fine. And I would post, my way of like implementing him was, you know, in the bio, and then a video of me reading my Bible, just kind of debriefing on it a little bit. And I was like, okay, I need to do this, because I said I would surrender it to him and never not say his name. Well, it became such a pressure that my quiet time, my alone time was turned into, okay, what kind of video could I make with this to make sure I'm sharing Jesus' name? And so it was, I started getting like almost like oppressed with it, you know? And he told me, he's like, Devin, it's okay. They'll know me by your fruit. And that shifted it for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. And so then from then, I didn't feel that pressure anymore to make sure I'm doing the Christian thing and at least saying Jesus every now and then, you know, so people knew that we were Christian. It was like, they're going to figure it out.
At least hashtag it.
Exactly.
No matter what.
Yeah. Even without saying we were Christian, people were just, they could see it in our fruit. And just by our actions, we're seeing how a relationship can be healthy and fun as Christians.
For your perspective, Hunter, in regards to like when that all took off, were you like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to be involved in this now. Great.
I did. I felt like now it's a us thing and not a her thing, at least TikTok. Like, I never thought we would be doing that. Like, I thought it was just for fun, you know, and I knew that she had felt that calling and that pull to it, but I never thought that like it would really be like a permanent us thing, a long-term thing. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And like, back to your question that you asked earlier about like, did we feel the need to post, like keep it growing? I would say that we did, because it was like, oh, well, we're growing like crazy. Like, we need to keep posting. And just, to me, it was like let's see what happens with it. And then in my head, I wasn't actively thinking, and then we'll just be done. But like, that was kind of like, I wasn't expecting that we would still be doing this 2 years later almost.
Because you were a firefighter too. So you still went to work, and it shut off for you.
Yes.
Mentally. But then it's still, you have the page and you're watching it grow. And me being like, oh, I guess we need to make more videos.
Like, I didn't even have TikTok. I didn't even have the app downloaded on my phone. Like, I think we had over like 2 million followers before I ever even downloaded the app. Seriously.
I relate to that.
I think Sarah was pretty similar.
That's me.
Yeah. So I was just supporting her.
Yeah.
but I never really thought that it would turn into a job.
I mean, to the point where
now we
transition
work,
out of your
and now we work way more than we ever have.
Right? And you do it full time.
Yeah. I do too. Yeah.
So
Nonstop.
how is that transition? Because I know that firefighters, we talked about this a little bit about how, that's kind of a brotherhood. And was that something that you felt kind of called to do, or did you feel obligated to do just because the workload started to get higher, transitioning out of, firefighter with benefits and a good job? It's kind of a faith jump to do that and go all in on this.
Definitely was a faith jump. And yes, I felt the calling to do it. And Devin will tell you that I didn't want to.
Sure.
Like, I didn't want to quit. I didn't. Me personally, in my flesh, didn't want to quit. It was a long time. Like, I battled with it for a long time. I felt like it was coming, like she talked about earlier. I felt like it was coming, but I just kept kind of pushing it off. And then I had a lot of people that were kind of pouring into me. We had this really long conversation with Cam and Mal, actually. It was in Orlando. We were at Universal, and we were in a hot tub. And we just had this like the Holy Spirit was just in the hot tub with us. It was this crazy. Yeah. There was extra bubbles in there. I'm like, where is this coming?
It wasn't actually a hot tub. It was just a pool. But there were bubbles happening. So either we were gassy or it was.
So I left there with the mindset. I'm like, okay, I think I'm actually going to quit. Fast forward, was it like the next weekend? We went to church. I still hadn't went back to work yet because I was on vacation. Next weekend, we went to church, and the sermon was just like, I've never been to church and heard a sermon about like leaving things when it's time, pretty much. And that was the sermon. I'm like, okay.
It was one of those sermons where you just like,
if I don't quit tomorrow, like he's going to strike me down kind of thing,
And it was almost like, and as viewing him, I never wanted to pressure him. So I just was like, how are you feeling? And so I would let him talk, and he knew I was just supportive of whatever choice. And that after service, and we were in the truck, he was like,
it's one of those, she's going like this.
Yeah, I'm nudging him the whole time, like, are you hearing this?
Yeah.
And it was almost like as for an encouragement, because I knew he was struggling so much.
Yeah.
And so when we got in the truck, he was just like, I think God's telling me, how many more signs can I give you?
Right.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments.
And were you excited?
Oh, I was so excited.
Yeah.
But I still was like, okay. Right. Okay.
I'm outside.
Outside. But inside, I'm like, yes.
Whatever you want.
He'll never have to leave another night.
Yeah. So I did quit the next day.
Wow, the next day.
The next day. The Monday, I just so happened, it was my first shift back. I was on vacation for like 3 weeks. Went to church that last Sunday. My first shift back was the literal next day on Monday. And I had told everybody that I was quitting before lunch. So that was my 2 weeks. And then my last shift was October the 8th of 22.
Still wild. And I knew how hard it was for him to make that decision because being a firefighter is a pride thing. And you're proud of it.
Absolutely.
And I think all of his work, people were confused by it. And, so many people at that point were like, okay, is social media going to last? Kind of vibe.
Right.
Yep.
Like, why are you leaving a job that you could retire in 20 years at this point for something that you don't even know if it's going to last? But that is why it was such a God thing, And he even struggled after.
I struggled for a long time after. The month of January, we had really busy. We were super busy like around the holidays, and then we traveled, and we came home one time after a long traveling trip, like the middle of January. I called Devin, and I was like, she was doing something busy. I had Ivy with me in the back of my truck, and I was driving, and I said, if Ivy wasn't in this truck with me, I would drive downtown and go reapply at the fire department. I was like, I'm done.
Wow.
I was already like burnt out on not necessarily the social media, but just like the busyness of it. I was like, I quit in October, and we have not stopped since. I'm like, I get more break at the fire department.
Right.
And that's when we were like, okay, we've got to implement boundaries because this was never supposed to be a burden in that way. It was supposed to be fun, and, we were called to it. And when you're in God's will, like, sure, there's going to be moments of fear or worry or whatever, But ultimately, when you are in his will, that's the safest place to be. Like you feel a peace and joy. And so not having that, we're like, all right, we've stepped out somewhere. Like what's happening? And I think it's because priorities again, it shifted, so it's a constant self-reflecting thing of, are we putting God first? And so at that point, we were putting social media first.
Yep.
And so there's been a few moments like that where it's like he has to snap us back into reality and be like, hold up. Yes, I'm blessing you with this in this way, and you have a calling to do this, but right now you've taken it on your own and you're trying to take the reins, And I'm like, I don't want them. You can have them back.
Take them. Yeah. Even your content, which is very organic and seems like you're taking a video and then you're uploading, kind of like people don't realize the amount of work that really goes in behind the scenes of all this. And so, because when you have a job, the thing about a job is that it kind of gives you your own boundaries. If it's a 9 to 5, you leave work and then you can just enjoy your life and don't have to think about work, and you kind of have the freedom to do that. But with social media, unless you create that, it's just kind of an all-day thing. We've definitely had days where it's just like we wake up and we started, and then we didn't end until we got tired, until 11 p.m. and then we kind of burned out, and then we'd go to sleep, and that's not sustainable. So how do you guys have a system or implementing any type of boundaries in your life to kind of keep that balance as much as you can?
I think we're still figuring it out.
Sure.
It's been consistently changing, because it was a lot easier for us when Ivy was still napping, but she no longer, like her nap, like 2, sometimes a 3-hour nap. We could get so much done during that amount of time. And it was almost like a set thing. Like, okay, I have X, Y, and Z to do. I can do all of that while she naps. So it was just perfect. But she, like I said, she no longer naps anymore. So that has been and we're still trying to work through that.
Does one person
better
do
now,
most of the videoing, one does the editing, or how is that? Is there a dynamic there?
It used to be I did everything. Well, he filmed, and then airdrop it to me. I'd edit it, which was so hard because I went through a period of honestly hating myself because of editing myself, know? And I got, after reading comments and things like that, I was like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, it was like the people's comments as I'm editing would just like pop up in my head. And I'm like, oh my gosh, am I annoying? Am I whatever? And even though to me, like I really do appreciate myself. Like I appreciate who I am and my goofiness or whatever. But the enemy definitely took that and was like really making me struggle with it. And so there was a period where I was doing all of that. And of course, he took over other areas like housework and stuff. And so, but recently he's been editing a lot of those ones. Like if he films me, he edits it. That way I don't have to sit there and judge myself.
Sure.
Like, cause he loves me and he thinks I'm the funniest person he knows.
Yeah.
And so he's like, this is a great video. Like you post it.
I just edited one this morning. It's great.
I saw it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And so I do all the posting on TikTok and all that. But yeah,
I still would not have the TikTok app if she didn't make me.
Yeah.
Like the app itself.
Right.
Do the mean or negative comments get to you guys?
No, I would say in the beginning, yes, because I wasn't used to that. Sure, you've been bullied some or whatever, but never people say the most hateful things to you on there. And so that
very
newness,
brave behind the keyboard.
I had to get calloused a little bit to that. And then I was like, why am I even reading it? So I set boundaries with myself to not read it, to just stay away. And then, but sometimes a notification pops up and it happens to be a mean comment. I'm like, let me see what they sound. And so honestly, and it could be because I'm hormonal too right now. The other day there was a few comments and I just commented back and I'm like, don't be rude. And it's almost, I'm just annoyed with it.
Yes,
right. I'm just like, please don't.
It just,
And did you, like when you comment back, do they kind of be like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize you.
Most of the time, yes. So hard.
I didn't mean it that way.
Interesting. Yeah,
that's the big.
right.
I didn't really mean it that way.
You're like, you said you hated me.
Yeah.
What's
up for interpretation?
Did you mean love? Did autocorrect take to
autocorrect it?
Yeah.
Put an asterisk or something next time.
But no, okay, so going back to boundaries, it's like he said, it's constantly changing. Like we're constantly having to self-reflect, reflect on our work weeks or whatever, and we'll get into a pattern of bad boundaries, and so we're just all over the place. And then we're like, all right, let's reevaluate. What are we doing? Because we don't want, one of our big things is, so why he brought up Ivy napping is because we don't want her just to see us glued to our phones all the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it was at nighttime when we had to work. And so after she goes to bed, or thankfully, you know, she goes to like a Mother's Morning Out program twice a week. So that helps us kind of get stuff done. I try not to just endless scrolling for myself, because I'm like, we already post social media. So I don't want to also be stuck in it, you know? Look, what are boundaries y'all have?
I feel like we're just starting to figure it out, because since I only quit my job a few months ago and he's still in his job. So it's interesting because this past week he's had off completely. So it's been like a look into what that's going to be like. And I mean, we have been working from the moment we wake up until like 11 p.m. Yeah. And so we're like, well, this cannot be what the schedule is.
Not sustainable.
Yeah. No.
Because even if you're not like editing something, it's like thinking of ideas, or it's like content ideas, or create, like it's hard to shut that part off for me.
And I think people get confused too. Like some people who complain about doing social media as work, I'm like, oh, come on, it is an easy job. Like it's a blessing. It's so many people want to do that instead of going to 8 to 5. But some people probably get confused and are like, why do you work so much? Because all they see is a video posted, but really there's so much that goes into it. And like more, like y'all do skits, like, so those like more thought out things.
Right.
And then, so with ours being the organic, you would think it'd be easy.
Do anything like you guys, it just...
Everyone's like, we don't care about your life. Do a skit for us. Sing something.
Yes.
Stop talking about your life.
Sing again.
And so for us, I don't think it's not the filming part. It's YouTube, yes, because that's more of your time. It's like a full day of it. Vlogging. It's honestly just the constant not shut off. Like you're like, okay, so we have these 3 videos for the next 3 days, but then we're going to have videos after that. So on our kind of vibe. And then with brand deals, sponsorships, you're sending
that's kind of the work part.
That's the work part is that. And
which
just
it's
their
easy,
timeline.
but it's extremely time consuming.
It's the
That's
time
what I
consuming.
tell. There's some guys at the fire department, like especially when I left, mostly they're like, so what do you do? Just sit at home all day and make videos? And I'm like, yeah, just sit around, you know, all day.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, like I said earlier, like we work way more now than we ever have.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's hard to shut it off.
Yeah.
It's social media.
Yeah.
So it's already so alive.
Yep.
Yeah. Unless you're actively engaged in something that has nothing to do with it, you can't shut it off, because it's like constantly you're either thinking about what to do next, or you're thinking about what ideas you're going to have next for content. So
I will add to that and say recently though, and we talked a little about this last night, about it's honestly, I am to the point though where I don't feel pressure to post every day, you know, because it's almost, there is a pressure of being a content creator in the sense of you've got to post every day. You've got to keep up with the algorithm. You've got to keep up with all this stuff where you're going to become irrelevant and then you lose your job basically. And so I've had to make peace with that and know like, no, I don't have to post every day. You know, we're our own boss, and that's what the luxury of doing social media as a job is you're the boss. So you can, you know, I mean, not when it comes to sponsorships and stuff like
but especially because especially if you're not feeling well, or if you're feeling sick, or if you've gone through, you know, I know you talked recently about going through a miscarriage. You know, when you go through something, well, maybe you should ask that question.
Well, we were just talking
about
like how I was saying how after I went through the miscarriage and it was like we were trying to film and I was just like, I can't. I just need to sit on this chair and cry. I can't film anything right now. So there is like an element of when life hits you,
life happens,
how is it coming to peace with like, I'm just not in a place to make a video right now, or I'm not going to post right now, or I'm not ready to share this thing with my audience yet.
Yes.
You ever feel like that kind of
that
kind
you
of
have
pressure?
to, that you even after like going through the miscarriage, I'm like, okay, is this something I have to share? Like, am I supposed to put this out there? In that, I feel like I had good boundaries with that, and I was like, no, you know, I can share it when I want, if I want, however I want, and then same thing that you know, a few months later, getting pregnant again, I can share when I want to, but going through all the sickness, and I feel like the last few months, there has been a shift in our posting because life happened, the miscarriage, then getting pregnant again, and all the emotions along with that, and then the physical aspect of it, and just not wanting to, like, it's almost like I just went through a period of not caring because realizing, okay, stuff is more important than just like filming it for content, you know?
How quickly did you get pregnant after
2
your
months.
miscarriage? Wow.
Yeah. I was shocked. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like my doctor told me, he was like, be careful. Most women are more fertile after you have a miscarriage. I guess because it just like cleanses it out. I'm not even sure. But I was like, okay. And so the next month, whenever I started my period, I was so discouraged because I really grasped that. And I was like, okay. And I was taking ovulation strips, and that's something I never did before. And so when it didn't work, whenever I felt like it should have worked, I just was like, okay. I was like, no, this is not, it was out of my control, out of my will. It's going to happen when it happens again, whatever. And then I got pregnant the next month. And so I was shocked because at that point we didn't track ovulation. We were just like, let go and let God, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
Let go.
Yeah. Did you go through any period of time where you're like, I need a second, or were you immediately ready to try again?
Yeah. I think I just
Oh,
What accent? I don't know what you're talking about.
it was so shocking because I thought, I mean, that was my first time experiencing miscarriage. And so I always, based off of other people that I have seen go through it or whatever, needed time. And so I expected me to want time too after. And so I had a few days of mourning and just kind of the guilt, just feeling that and kind of having to process all of my emotions and unlearning that, okay, I was pregnant and now I'm not kind of vibe. Like, what would that look like? And then, so I was so surprised that I was like, no, let's try again.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it was also so close together from me finding out I was pregnant to miscarrying. It happened all in the same few days. So I feel like maybe if it happened further along, maybe I would have wanted more time.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it was so fresh and it just didn't even, I don't even know. But I was nervous. I was like, okay, when I get pregnant again, I'm going to be so scared that I'm going to miscarry again.
Right.
But honestly, like I had such a peace. Got the positive pregnancy test, and like I was worried that Hunter was worried for me. Were you worried?
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what was your side of that?
I was like, he probably thinks I'm not okay, or that I'm going to be uptight and be like, oh, you know, and every little thing's going to be a miscarriage. And I had a few moments like that, but majority, I just had this unexplainable peace. And I'm like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I was surprised at the peace that she did have with it. It was, I don't want to say that it was easy for me, but because it wasn't, but you know, that's really her battle to fight. And I'm just there to support her through it. And it was early and like all that stuff that she said, but I was just trying to be the support person because she actually, when she found out she was pregnant with the miscarriage, when she found out, she immediately ordered Ivy like a big sister shirt. And so when that came in, I knew she did it. So when that came in, like I just hid it. And then like a week goes by and she's like, you know, maybe that shirt never came in. Like maybe that was
I
God.
thought it was
She's like, maybe that was God
picking my
saying like,
package.
yeah, maybe so I wouldn't have to deal with it. I'm like, yeah, maybe it was.
Absolutely.
It wasn't this angel right
Yeah,
here.
Right. And then figuring out he did that for me,
Yeah.
like showed me, because he's very quiet and not express, and he's supportive, and I feel his support, but it's a lot of times it's not with words, it's just his actions, and him doing that just, it made me boohoo, and I'm like, oh, dang, like, you know, that showed me that was better than words you could have said. And then whenever, it's gonna make me choke up a little bit, whenever I got pregnant again, and he ended up getting it out and stuff.
Yeah.
I love the victory part, like being on the other side and that like now being excited for your second baby. And I just think it makes me so hopeful for my own story.
For sure.
It's so cool.
It's so hard to see in the moment when you go through things like that, like what the purpose of it is and why you're going through it. I do believe that everything happens for a reason. You may not even know in your lifetime, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think it happens a lot where further on down the road, you see that if that never happened, then we would never be at the place that we're at.
With social media being such a approval driven industry, because it's all about like the success comes from whether people like what we put out or not. How do you keep that approval from being the number one thing that you're striving for, when really, the whole goal is that we please our creator, we please an audience of one, and that's really what we're working for. But as worldly humans, that can be so hard to practice in reality. So how is there a way that you guys have like kept that proper alignment in regards to whose approval you're really seeking, or have you struggled with that at all?
I definitely have struggled with that. And ironically, I've just grown up always being a people pleaser. And that is one thing why I was honestly shocked. And whenever I felt this call in my life and that there was a bigger purpose and you're going to be an influencer to many and I'm going to lift you up so you can lift me up. And I'm like, me? Are you sure? You know what I already struggle with, Lord. Like mental health and all those things, it would end up getting to me because it would make me so insecure because I wanted the approval of others so bad. I never wanted to disappoint people, hurt people, all those things. And ironically with social media, you're not going to please everybody. Nope. Not everybody's going to like you. You're not everybody's cup of tea. And I knew that going into it. I knew that. But it still was hard. And it was something that I had to navigate through and be like, okay, how do I continue to do this and fulfill this purpose and not think about all that and just worry about pleasing him? And I mean, I couldn't do it without him. And obviously having support from Hunter and people speaking encouraging things to me and in my life and just having good mentorship and stuff like that. But it's a personal journey that I've had to come through with my own walk with him. And really, I've grown a lot since high school and when I really struggled. And so now I feel like I can be confident because I'm like, he gave me this call. The world didn't give me this call. Susan that's commenting didn't give me this call. Like, you know what I mean?
Susan 2, 3, 6, 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just personal growth. And as it's a constant sanctification process, my relationship with Jesus, the closer I am to him, the more confident I can be in who he has called me to be and my purpose, and feeling that purpose is important. And I know whenever I let the enemy tell me lies and that people pleasing comes back and I get disappointed in our content or myself or all these things. And I have to remember that, no, God called me to this. And I don't know, it's just you just end up being confident. Like,
well, he also made you who you are for a reason. So like when people comment on you being annoying or whatever they say, and I know, and the people that matter know that you're not annoying. You're funny. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I mean, yeah, that can be their opinion of you, sure. But just because that's their opinion of you doesn't mean you have to believe it.
It doesn't mean it's true. Like people,
It's
I've had
true,
to learn,
or you have to change.
Right. I've learned that people's perspective of things is their own perspective.
Yep.
It doesn't mean it's true or that it's what I think or whatever. And so just being educated in the knowledge of God and knowing that the people of this world, it shouldn't surprise me.
Yep.
We live in a broken, fallen world, so it's going to be chaotic and people are not going to be nice. And so I don't know, just getting that confident, it only comes from him.
Yeah.
And constantly have to tell myself it's to an audience of one, So, I mean, I've let people convict me before and then I've had to backtrack and be like, wait. Only God can convict me. But I have learned, too, it's okay to self-reflect. Like, if somebody says something, like a Christian, I've had plenty of Christians say they're disappointed in me, whatever. And instead of becoming offended by it, used to I would, but I just remember, I'm like, okay, I'll self-reflect on it for a second, but then I'm done. Like, I'm like, no, they think that, but that's not the truth. Yeah. But there has been a time where somebody maybe has said something, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not. And I take it to God and be like, all right, God, now you tell me how you feel about me in this.
That's really good. That's so powerful. because I'm a people pleaser as well, and that's something that same in high school. It was really terrible, and then I started to overcome it. And I mean, now I'm 35, so I always hear that the older you get, the less you care about what people think, and I have definitely found that to be true.
Yes, it's true. Yes, I feel the same way.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything that you've shared, guys. You guys are so kind and genuine people. And if anybody meets you, like if any of the haters were to meet you in person, they never would say the things that they say. People are always brave behind a keyboard, but they would never say these things in person. And like you said, I've heard you say this before, and this is a very popular saying, but hurt people. And it's very true. You know, in wrapping up, like, what do you guys have going on in your life? Like, what are you excited about? You know, I know you have your podcast that's really crushing it.
Yes,
so cool.
We
Really
just
exciting.
launched that, the Salty Podcast, and I mean, pregnant with baby number 2. By the time this is posted, we would have had announced.
Yeah.
So it's a secret right now.
Yeah, I know.
It's been our little secret. But yeah, other than that, that's kind of taken up everything right now.
Right.
You know,
It's really exciting.
Yeah, thank y'all for having us on.
course.
Y'all
Thank
are
you.
so kind.
Absolutely.
And like ditto, if people would just have met y'all, and you know, we met y'all in Vegas and we're like, oh, they're awesome. They're so funny.
That was super fun.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we met you there. So as always, we like to end our podcast by saying
Goodbye.
okay.
Wait,
there's
did we-
something in
There
there.
was some
Was that harmony?
some
Close.
good dissonance in there. I think.
Absolutely. You went bass.
Yeah.
As I figured you would.
I think
Of course.
Yeah.
So good.
Bye.
Bye.